What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we will be breaking down the potential picks for the New York Mets in the upcoming 2021 MLB Draft. There's no better person that I thought of to have this discussion with than a writer who's done plenty of mock drafts up to this point about the draft, that being, and yes, Joe DeMayo for SNY. So him and I will be breaking down potential picks for the Mets and so much more, so make sure you stay all the way until the end of the video, find all the deets and all our thoughts and Joe's thoughts in particular about some players that could find themselves landing with the Mets with the 10th overall pick in the first round. If you guys end up enjoying this kind of Mets content and you want to see more great Mets content like this, do not hesitate from smashing that like and subscribe on, sharing this video with your friends, putting on the notification bell, all those great things. Thank you so much for the continued support, guys. Now let's jump right into today's video. All right, Joe, welcome back to the channel. Long time no see. As many of you know, we've had Joe DeMayo on the channel numerous times talking prospects in the past, leading up to the season on our top 10 prospects heading into the year, and also taking a look at some Mets post-game discussions more often than not after wins. So, Joe, how are you today, my friend, and how pumped are you to actually get into this, knowing that the draft is just a couple days away at the time of recording this?
Super excited. Can't wait to, dive into the draft and actually recap it. Previewing it's fun and I love doing it. And I've been doing this for 15 years or so absolutely love it. And yeah, ready to get going. I want to see who the Mets are adding.
Absolutely. And before we even go any further, I just want to say how much that I've been enjoying not just your podcast, That's Some Mets podcast with Connor Rogers that you co-host, all your writings that you do for SNY, but especially this year is a little different for you, having your own digital segment with Jacob Resnick, and that being the Mets Prospective, which is a segment you guys do on all these different prospects, player breakdowns. So if you'd like to expand a little bit further on that before we go any forward, please do, because I think a lot of people would love it if they haven't checked it out already.
Yeah, absolutely. Please check out Mets Perspective if you haven't. It's a web digital video series. They put this face out there for the world to see for some reason. And it's on sny.tv. And like you said, it's myself and Jacob Resnick. And it's really just a show to educate the Mets fans on the prospects in the system. I mean, it's pretty easy to look up and find something, you could find something out about Francisco Alvarez or Brett Beatty, the top couple guys in the system. We dive a little deeper than that. So we do full breakdowns on the top guys. And then we also give you some notes about some guys that you probably have never heard of. So I think it's just a really fun opportunity to talk prospects and get it out to the general Met fans. So when these guys come up, you'll at least say, I've heard that name before. Like Tyler McGill, prime example. We interviewed Tyler McGill, did a breakdown on him, whole thing, boom, gets called up. And it's definitely a fun series, and I recommend you check out all the episodes that we have so far. We broke down Francisco Alvarez, we broke down Brett Beatty with an interview with Beatty, and then broke down Tyler McGill with an interview with him. So a bunch of fun stuff coming with Mets Perspective. So yeah, please check that out. sny.tv, digital video series with myself and Jacob Resnick, and that drops every other Thursday. So whenever you're watching this, what's today's date? The 30th? Yeah. So the next episode drops tomorrow, which is July 1st. And then 2 weeks from that, the next one will drop. So really excited about it. And appreciate you asking. And hopefully everyone on your channel will check it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been so much fun to watch. So guys, if you haven't already, please make sure to check it out after this whenever you can. I will have all the links to his podcast, all of his articles, everything you need to know in the description down below of this video. So now talking about the draft and prospects, this is your niche. This is what you're known for. So when I thought of the draft coming up starting on July 11th, I thought of you right away. And I was thinking of what players would be possibly best fit or most realistic for the Mets. And while breaking down some of your articles, I felt it was fitting that we go in order with how your mock drafts have been within the first round. You've done 3 mock drafts so far for the Mets over the past month or so, and it's time that we break them down. So let's start off with the first player that you discuss that the Mets would possibly land with the 10th overall pick, and that is something that the Mets are desperately needing currently in the farm, and that is pitching depth. As we know, they parted ways with a lot of guys over the past couple of years, so to add depth is key. And the first guy you had is right-handed pitcher in Sam Bachmann, the junior at Miami, Ohio, most known for as a Steelers fan. Ben Roethlisberger is from Miami, Ohio as well. The 6'1", 235-pounder is currently 4-4 on the season with a 1.81 ERA and just shy of 100 strikeouts with 93. So what's your stance on Bachmann? What do you like about him? Where do you think he's actually going to land possibly in this year's draft? And what is the likelihood and the realism behind the Mets possibly going after him?
So I like Bachmann a lot. I think his range probably starts at number 8 with the Rockies, if I had to guess. And I don't think it goes far past 11 with the Nationals. Maybe he'll fall to 12, but I think he's right in that 8 to 12 range, let's call it. So Mets taking him at 10 would be perfectly fine from a value perspective. And I mean, if you want to just talk about a guy with special stuff, that's Sam Bachmann. I mean, he's a little smaller height-wise. He's built kind of like an old-school linebacker at like 6'1", 225, 230. So a little shorter, but a stocky guy. And his fastball's been clocked as high as 102. Wipeout slider. His changeup, he hasn't really used much in college because he doesn't really need to. He's facing, some lesser competition over at Miami of Ohio. So he doesn't really need to utilize that 3-pitch mix. But if you look at Rapsodo data and things like that from when Bachmann goes training, his changeup shows elite movement skills. So I think there is potential with the changeup. There's some reliever risk, I think, here with Bachmann, but he could be a quick to the major leagues, big time power arm. And yeah, if he's a guy that the Mets covet and want to take, I think he can fit in this organization that could, he can move quickly. And it just really depends how you want to grow his role, because he could end up in the bullpen long term. But if you develop that changeup, then you're looking at, a real high potential starting pitcher with his 2 other plus pitches.
And I think what's really key is the changeup. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last time that we spoke the first time on the channel regarding Mets prospects, we were really highlighting the importance of a changeup, how a lot of guys, especially when they're first getting into their MLB careers, don't even have one developed. So to have him not just have it simply developed, but to have it as one of his better pitches is awfully impressive. So Bachmann is a guy that would easily upgrade the current farm for the Mets. And as we know, they're trying to upgrade in all the areas, and they're depleted basically everywhere right now. And after losing guys, whether it's like to Seattle or Woods Richardson a couple years ago in the Marcus Stroman trade, adding depth with a guy like him would definitely be key in my opinion. So I'm not against it. I'm going to be awfully curious to see if the Mets could possibly land him at 10 when you have a team like the Rockies who can always use starting pitching depth as it is. Would they go for him at 8 possibly? I'm not sure, but he's definitely a great player to keep into consideration here. So is there any final notes that you'd like to give on Bachmann before we get into our second player?
No, just, one of the a high upside college pitcher is the way I would describe Bachmann, just to kind of summarize, which you don't see very often. I think when you think of college pitchers, you think of kind of safe guys that are going to make the major leagues and be what they are. Bachmann's a guy that has some ceiling, albeit with, a lower floor than maybe some other college pitchers.
Okay, that's very good to hear. So now let's get on to the second player, and this is by far the most exciting one in my opinion. This player has been talked about plenty leading up into the draft as possibly being one of the best out there and looming either between being up into the 10 or maybe gain to as far as the 15th pick. Time will tell, but outfielder Colton Couser is a guy who very much would be an upgrade to the Mets. As we know, we don't have Jared Kelenic anymore, and I'm not going to expand on that any further, but the Mets don't have outfield depth like they originally would have had just a couple years ago. And yes, we have guys like Armstrong, who has really been an upside, even though he's been out for the year with an injury, having shoulder surgery, I believe. And now Khalil Lee, who's more of a guy who will be hopefully in the MLB sooner than later. He had some stints this year thanks to injuries. But Couser, what else can you say about him? The sophomore at Sam Houston State is 6'3", 195. He's a lefty at the bat and a righty with the glove. And in 55 games played so far this season, he has 16 home runs, 52 RBIs, and 17 stolen bags. So he definitely knows how to work those base paths and has a 374 average. So let me know, give me all your stances on Couser, what he would bring to the Mets, and how realistic it is for him to possibly land all the way at number 10.
So Couser is a guy that I'm hearing that it's even possible he'll be gone before 10. I've heard the same. The Baltimore Orioles are a team at number 5 that I think you could keep an eye on potentially. They may be looking for one of those under slot deals like they did last year when they took Heston Kjerstad out of Arkansas with the number 2 pick, and then they'll be able to have some bonus money to really spend on a second or a third round pick, which you saw the Mets do with JT Ginn last year and Matt Allen a couple of years ago. So the Orioles could take that kind of approach, and at that point you could see a guy like Couser go there. But if he doesn't go to Baltimore at 5, I think he will be there at 10 for the Mets. And will they take him? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I think they do have some interest in him. And like you said, they could use some outfielders in the system. I don't think he's really going to stick in center personally. I know there are some scouts that do. I think he translates to me more of a corner guy. His power did break out a bit this year, but I don't think he's, a 25, 30 home run guy. I think he's more your 15, 20 home run guy with some doubles. And he can run the bases a bit above average runner. He's not, an elite base stealer by any means, but he can run and he's smart on the base paths. I think he's an intriguing prospect that has a very high floor and maybe just not that huge ceiling. So kind of the opposite of Bachmann in a sense, where Bachmann has the ceiling that he could be a frontline superstar, but a floor where he just ends up in the bullpen as a 2-pitch reliever. Couser, I think, is a major league starting outfielder, once all his development's done. I don't think you're ever going to see him on all-star teams. And I don't know if that'll turn some people off. I'm sure it will, because everyone wants the next stud, obviously, at number 10.
Not everyone's going to be Mike Trout. I'm sorry, folks.
Exactly. Not everyone's going to be a stud. But to me, Colton Couser has every making of an everyday left or right fielder. And comparison actually from MLB Pipeline, Brandon Nimmo was a comp that MLB Pipeline dropped on him. So bring some Mets into it. And I'm a big Nimmo guy, but I know it's quite divided amongst Met fans what they feel about him. But yeah, I'm a fan of Couser. I think he's someone the Mets could consider, and that's why I threw him there in my mock 2.0.
Well, I think MLB Pipeline has some cojones to be comparing him to Mr. Brandon Nimmo, because if this guy isn't sprinting down to first every time he gets walked, I don't think you can even put them in the same category. But all jokes aside, what is the biggest aspect about his game that has intrigued you the most while you've been following him and could bring you some excitement should the Mets actually land him?
Pure left-handed stroke. Like if you watch video of Colton Couser swinging, like that's what you want a left-handed swing to look like. It's a pretty swing. He has a high contact rate, good barrel rate. Just, he doesn't have that big power, like I said, but pure hitter. And I could take a pure hitter any day.
Well, that's great to hear as well. It'll be interesting to see where he lands in the draft. Again, at the time of recording this, we're just right around 11 days away. So now getting into the final player, the player that you chose last in your latest mock draft, we have another right-handed pitcher, that being in Ty Madden. And Ty Madden, the sophomore at Texas, is 6'3", 215. He's 7-5 in his win and loss record currently on the season. He has a 2.45 ERA and 137 strikeouts. So let me hear your stance on Madden. How would you view him in comparison to a guy like Bachmann? Which one between the two do you actually see possibly landing higher in the draft versus the other? And what would he possibly bring to the Mets?
I would guess Madden would go before Bachmann, but it's going to be very close. Like I said, I mean, if Colorado, pops Bachmann at number 8, that I don't think Madden's going to go top 7 necessarily. I think Madden's range will start probably at number 9 with the Angels, if I had to guess, and won't go too far after that because this college pitching class isn't particularly deep. So I don't envision, I think college pitching is going to fly off the board in the first round, if I had to guess. And Madden, to me, he's your prototypical number 3 type starter with potential for a little more. He has 2+ pitches right now in his fastball that sits 94, 96, gets up to 98, and really, a plus slider. He has a changeup and a curveball that he also mixes in. And frankly, and I talked to some scouts as well, but he reminds me, and I'm not comparing what their careers will end up and nothing like that, because I'm going to say his name and it's going to get a reaction. But he reminds me way back when the Mets drafted Matt Harvey out of North Carolina. I thought they were very similar type pitchers coming out of college. Harvey was really a 2-pitch guy, and there was questions if Harvey was even going to stick as a starter, period, coming out of college. And the Mets took him number 7 overall, of course, and he panned out to be really good, and then injuries, took over. But Ty Madden, a little bit reminding me of Matt Harvey coming out of college. So I'd be personally really happy about him. And I focus in these mock drafts on guys outside of the top tier of players, which there's a possibility that one of those guys do end up falling to number 10, and the Mets could pivot and take someone like a Jackson Jobe, who's a high school pitcher from Oklahoma, or even a guy like Kumar Rocker from Vanderbilt, who
don't get me that excited, Joe. Jesus.
So we interviewed Jim Callis from MLB Pipeline yesterday on That So Mets podcast, and he agreed with my assessment that Kumar Rocker's not going to go in the top 5. He's had some inconsistencies with his velocity this spring. There were starts where he was 90 to 92. Then there were starts where he was 95 to 97. So there was some consistency issues there. And there's some scuttlebutt that from a signing bonus standpoint, he may not be willing to play ball as much as some other college arms typically do. So I don't know that he's going to get all the way to 10. I would say it's probably a little unlikely, but I think he's going to be out of the top 5. And if he can sneak past Arizona at 6 and Kansas City at 7, that's kind of the two teams I have my eye on for Rocker. I actually gave him the Kansas City at 7 in all 3 of my mock drafts. If he gets past Kansas City, there's a chance. I don't think Colorado will pop him, and I don't think the Angels will either. So it'll be very interesting to see if it falls that way. But the MLB draft, very unpredictable. For all we know, Kumar Rocker could go number 3 overall. Like, it's a crazy thing that signing bonus demands do play a role in it. It's not like the NFL draft or the NBA draft where you can pull up a mock draft from anybody, and chances are it's either going to be right or really close, because you have guys will just go based on talent. In baseball, it's a combination of talent and signing bonus demands. And then you could go strategically with, how you want to spread out your bonus across the rounds. Like, I know there's a high school prospect, Colton Montgomery, who's getting some heat for the Mets. Most people project he's probably going to go top 25 picks, give or take. And there's some rumors that the Mets like him a lot, and potentially, if they wanted to go this route, could take Montgomery at number 10, sign him for significantly under slot, save some money, and spend really big in the second round in someone who falls. Or conversely, they can take Ty Madden, whatever at number 10, and then float a number to Montgomery to say, if we can get you in the second round, we'll give you $2.5 million, whatever, just throwing out a random number. Then now Montgomery can float that number to the teams that are talking about picking him in, say, the 20s, and they may not want to give that much money to pick at that point. So they'll take someone else, and that could potentially push him down the board. But that's a name I think Mets fans need to keep their eye on, because there's a lot of smoke with the Mets and Colton Montgomery from everyone I hear and every public source. I mean, Keith Law has talked about it. Jim Callis has talked about it. Kylie McDaniel at ESPN has talked about it. So there's a lot of heat there. So don't be stunned if Colton Montgomery ends up the pick at number 10. If I had to guess, he won't be, but just don't be shocked if it happens.
I'm glad you brought up Montgomery, because I've had multiple Mets fans ask me regarding possible draft content like what we're doing right now on my stance on Montgomery. So it's really interesting to hear about that, knowing that there's been smoke there with the Mets currently, and if something actually prevails. But I want to go back quick to Kumar, because if you guys don't know, Kumar Rocker has been one of the biggest faces in college baseball the past couple of years. He's so much fun to watch. This guy's velo is just ridiculous, and he isn't even the best pitcher, arguably, on his actual club in Vanderbilt, because they have this guy named Jack Leiter who's pretty good. I think we know his father pretty well. So that's a two-headed monster right there. But both of them have been lights out at times throughout the season. And Kumar, even though he's had his inconsistencies, it's great that you highlight the whole signing bonus situation, because it makes me think of a lot of a guy like Matthew Allen. As we know, Matt Allen, who's the top starting pitching prospect for the Mets, he's out of the year with Tommy John surgery. But when the Mets drafted him back in 2019, he got a massive signing bonus from Brodie Van Wagenen and really lock him up, or else he was possibly not. He was going to go elsewhere or go to college at least. So the Mets threw him money that he simply couldn't refuse. And when he got drafted outside the first round because of the signing bonus issue. So it is very much a factor. And the MLB draft is so much different than any other draft that I've ever witnessed, whether it's the NFL, the NHL, or even the NBA, and just how it's constructed. There's a lot of uncertainty there, but no less these are a lot of players to take into consideration. So before we kind of wrap things up here, Joe, are there any other players that kind of cross your mind that maybe we should keep an eye on, or just have our ear out a little bit further, that it wouldn't be all that surprising if maybe they either land at 10 from being higher up, or maybe the Mets take a little bit of a leap of faith on that they were going to possibly land later in the first round, if not the second?
Just one other name to keep an eye on, I'd say Sal Frelick, who's an outfielder from Boston College. He's a true center fielder, not really a ton of power in his game, but good contact hitter, can plus runner. I know he's in the conversation with the Mets. Outside of that, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm typically wrong in what they actually end up doing on draft day, but I've given you a few names, and if it's someone outside of those few names, either someone really awesome fell into their laps, similar to Michael Conforto. I mean, that's one I'll go back to. I was certain Michael Conforto was going number 4 overall to the Chicago Cubs back in 2015. I think they drafted him, and the Cubs took Schwarber, and I was like, all right, well, Conforto's still going to go. And then he was just sitting there at number 10, and the Mets took him. So keep an eye on
the rest is history. Conforto's my favorite player. So like that, it always means so much to me whenever I hear that man's name.
Yeah. So keep an eye on the guys at the top of the draft. I mean, a guy like Brady House, high school shortstop that might end up a third baseman long term, best raw power in the draft, potential 30+ home run bat, really exciting player. Other than that, the Mets should probably pick one of these guys. I mean, I'm talking about a few guys here, and they're picking 10th. So there's only so many guys that can go.
Oh, they're inevitably going off the board is what you're saying.
Yeah, inevitably. Just to get me, they're going to go someone that, I'll know about, but not have expected them to pick.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate you breaking down these players. I'm really pumped for the draft. I know you are. Again, this is your bread and butter. So guys, if you don't know enough about Joe, what the heck are you doing? Make sure to check him out, of course, on Twitter. And Joe, you can leave us where we can find you there on his podcast with That's a Mets podcast with co-host Connor Rogers, who does a lot of great content himself, especially with Bleacher Report, and also with his new digital platform with Mets Perspective with Jacob Resnick. So Joe, let us know where we can find you on your Twitter, especially, and any final words before we get out of here in this video regarding the Mets and their potential picks in the 2021 MLB draft.
Yeah, check me out on Twitter at PSL2Flushing, and that's TO. Check out That's So Mets podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you listen, go ahead and leave 5 stars for me, leave reviews, ask questions in the reviews, and we take them on the show. Check out Mets Perspective, digital video series, sny.tv, and then check out my writing over at sny.tv. And I'm going to be doing plenty of draft coverage over the next couple weeks at all of those places. So if you're interested in the draft, check out my work. And if you're not, start getting interested. The MLB draft is the backbone of what grows this league. So give it a shot on July 11th. Watch it if you've never watched it before. And I think you'll enjoy it and learn about some of the superstars of the future for the Mets, and then obviously just across baseball. So yeah, that'll cover it, man. I appreciate you as always, and we'll be talking soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to what the draft holds and seeing how accurate or inaccurate your mock drafts are. It's going to be a lot of fun, no less. But everyone that chimed in for this video, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button. If you did, in fact, enjoy, check out Joe, as I said already, and let's go Mets. I'll talk to you guys soon.